If you're in Seattle, and you need to buy or sell a home, we'll be right there for you. Because we're the realtors that you can trust. So go to ronanddonsitdown.com.
You're listening to The Ron and Don Show on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
Hey, you guys, what's going on? Welcome to another edition of the Ron and Don Show, and we are back live in the Les Schwab Studios.
What is up, Ron and Don Nation?
Hey, coming up on the Ron and Don Show, I like to call him Bob. Bob Redford, no longer with us. Ron's going to go over his favorite movies. I'm in fact tried to watch some of the movies, thinking, wow. And for some reason, I thought he was in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. He was not.
That's way before his time.
He was not in Chitty Chitty Bang. But I did go back and I did look at some of his movies, thinking, wow, these are probably great movies, right? And they're not as great as you think. Just saying, spoiler alert. Also, Tom Brady, is he cheating? Of course he is. We'll get to that, though. Let's get to this. Jimmy Kimmel. Has he been canceled or has he been canceled? Your take on Jimmy Kimmel this week. Is he canceled indefinitely or is he canceled?
This is such a disappointment to me. When I saw this headline, I was like, Kimmel says controversial thing over. I was like, oh my gosh, like what did he say?
Yeah.
So I went out and found what he said, and the joke was, it wasn't even it was nothing what he said.
What he did is he first and foremost, and no one's playing this, when Charlie Kirk was shot, he came out and said something and said, can't we all agree? And he talked about how the shooting was horrific and said both sides need to acknowledge that. No one's playing that tape.
Right.
Then on Monday, what happened is the president, and here's the thing about the president, and sometimes when you're narcissistic, and I know this because I can be narcissistic, we all can. And being narcissistic doesn't mean that you're a narcissist, but it does mean that we can all be narcissistic. Somebody had asked him a question, and a lot of reporters had been asking him questions about Charlie Kirk. And then there was kind of like this candlelight service for Charlie. And one of the reporters was kind of going in that direction of asking the president about that. And they had asked him how he was doing and how he was holding up. And he said he was holding up pretty good. And then I think the president pivoted because he knew the next question that was coming because he wasn't at that event. And some people on the left, some of the senators weren't at that event. And so reporters started asking them about that as well. I think that was the question. And then what Trump did is he immediately pivoted and he said, hey, let me tell you how construction is going right now on this new ballroom that I'm building. And they've wanted a ballroom here for 150 years. I'm using my own money, $200 million. We're building this ballroom. So, and he's done some other things. The Rose Garden doesn't have roses in it anymore. It's just a big concrete.
Right. They paved over it.
But he looked at that and he said, hey, women come out, their high heels get stuck and all that. We want to have events. We can't have them out here. So we're going to. So anyway, he's kind of doing his thing. And other presidents have done that. Other presidents have done their thing. Even when you look at George Washington, he had the White House built. He never lived in it, knowing that he'd never live in it. And then you look at some other presidents that from time to time have had to do some work on the White House. It seems to be continuous. So Trump went off on this thing about talking about the ballroom, and then it comes back to Kimmel, and Kimmel's like, wow, he's in his fourth stage of grief, and he said it's construction. So he went through the different stages, and then he said it's construction. Because of that, and they're saying because of that and being insensitive to Charlie Kirk and the death of Charlie Kirk, which is really, I didn't hear him being insensitive at all about Charlie Kirk. I heard him being insensitive to the president,
right? Which
he always is.
Correct.
And he has certainly said things that are much more bombastic than this.
100%.
And I think now that the president has control of the SEC, and he has his guy in there because the
SEC or the FCC?
The FCC. Now that he has his guy in here, his focus is, I think
they're using pressure from the state.
He's up late. He's the only one that watches all the late night shows. I don't. Like, I'm not a fan of Jimmy Kimmel. My son, I asked him yesterday, he doesn't even know who Jimmy Kimmel is. Out of all the late night Jimmys and Joes, he knows Jimmy Fallon because of Saturday Night Live. He doesn't know any of the other performers.
But the backstory on this is ABC which is owned by Disney. There's these huge conglomerates. There's a merger that's trying to happen with a bunch of stations that needs approval from the federal government because there are rules about how many TV stations and how many radio stations you can own in specific markets.
There's that merger, and then there's also the Paramount merger, which involved Colbert, and then there's also the Nexstar merger, and Nexstar owns the most television stations in big, small, medium markets around the country. And Nexstar is kind of the one that stepped in and said, we're not going to take the Jimmy Kimmel feed tonight. And so,
and then Sinclair, which leans very, very right, jumped on board with that and said, we're going to drop this from our
Well,
ABC
Jimmy Kimmel,
stations.
the executives at the Jimmy Kimmel show and at ABC initially said that we have your back and we're not going to cancel you and don't worry about that. And then when Nexstar stepped in, because they have a merger going on as well, and said, we're not going to take the feed, that's when the ABC executives, they didn't have a choice because those are all the people that they're doing business with. ABC doesn't own all those stations. Nexstar does, and they said, hey, we don't like what Jimmy said.
I think it's a bad precedent to have the current chair of the FCC commenting on specific people on the air. It's calling for someone's job in a free speech country is just bad. There are rules with the FCC about cursing, about the public good and all that. Jimmy Kimmel can point to many, many times that he has upheld the public good, including when his son had an operation at Mount Sinai and they raised a bunch of money for children's hospitals. So he's done a lot of good in the world. And to pick out one particular joke about one particular thing, this is the sort, like if you look at what they say, the biggest way to combat fascism is comedy. Is they do not, when you go back, and this is why Mel Brooks did the Producers movie, and when they said, hey, you're a Jewish comedian, how are you going to do a movie about springtime for Hitler? And he's like, this is the best way to get past, or to process, not get past, but to process World War II is to make fun of it. And that has been an endearing thing that's lasted for decades and decades and decades. And so that's what you want people to make fun of power. If you can't make fun of power and make a joke to power, that gets past a lot of these filters that we talked about in the previous show, is when something's funny and a comedian points out how ridiculous or hypocritical something is, comedy has a way of piercing that veil that just screaming at other people doesn't. So I think this is a dangerous thing to, take these voices, and conservatives could mount a late night show. Like you could have someone mount a late night show that doesn't make fun of the president or makes fun of other pop culture.
They do. Fox News has a very it's called Greg Gutfield, I think. He's very successful.
And so there's nothing.
He has more viewers than any of those three other shows on Fox.
It's nothing that is. I made my point.
So my friend Chip told me this. Chip is a friend of mine that I knew from Grand Rapids. He said, Don, the chickens have come home to roost. He said when it came to all this cancel culture and all the people on the right were getting canceled by the people on the left, it has just come full circle, and the left deserves it. What say you?
Deserves it in what regard?
I don't know. That's what he said in a post on my Facebook page.
I would agree with Chip, who I don't know if I've ever met Chip, but I think the left, the very farthest fringe of the left, enabled a lot of canceling, especially on college campuses and stuff, where you were policing what people said and thought.
I don't think that's all the fringe, though. I don't know that that's the fringe. Yeah, it did.
It wasn't. If you were center left or even maybe a little bit medium left, you weren't calling for the job of a Harvard professor.
You are not.
It's people left of that are saying, you can't say you didn't use someone's pronouns, we're canceling you. Like those were, I think, farther left than your centrist.
If you were,
and that was too far. I think it was too. There were a lot of jokes and things that I heard professors say that got canceled. Where you're like, that's just a bad old man joke.
If Jimmy Kimmel called you and said, Ron, what should I do? Should I shut up and let people rally around me? Because that's kind of what happened with Colbert. He was just quiet for a while, and then he came out. We saw this happen with Chris Rock when he got slapped. He was just quiet for a while, and he let the culture come to him and support him, which the culture did. If you're Jimmy Kimmel, do you come out and say something? Do you get bombastic? Is this the end of his show? Does ABC bring it back? What's going to happen?
I think I agree with something you said a little bit earlier in that the legacy media is probably not going to be the answer for him or Colbert. Like, they can go out and get probably as many, if not more, eyeballs. I would be curious to see their actual traffic. I watch everything about late night comedy that I watch on YouTube. So I'll watch Colbert's monologue on YouTube the next day. I will watch a Kimmel guest on YouTube the following day. Those two guys, I think the thing that they are trying to protect with these shows is not their voice or even their money, because both of them have made enough money, I think. It's the fact that they have these big family of crews. And Kimmel hires a lot of family members to be a part of that show. And so they're looking, and Colbert talked about, I have 200 people that work on this show, in part because it's the unions of New York. If you're in the New York union and like we say, hey, pick up this piece of gear, the guy that's standing right here is like, I don't do that, but George down the hall can be a gear pickup guy. There's another union job because they've been so protected by the union. So even though guy number one could pick up the gear, it's not within his union job. In the same way that George can't adjust your microphone. We need to get the microphone union guy in here. And so there's 200 people on that show. And that's, I think, what Colbert really is trying to protect, and probably similar with Kimmel. Those two guys could go out and make their own show, their own commentary. They could do it for on the cheap and take the model of any of the big time.
Conan
podcaster.
did it.
Conan did it.
He just sold his channel. He just sold it, and he's still creating content for it. But he sold it for $200 or $250 million.
Yeah, and Bill Maher does the thing. So like those guys at the top of the pyramid have the world is their oyster, as they say. It's the guy that was like the grip. That had worked for 10 years and supported his family and has 2 kids. Yep. It's the lighting director. It's the wardrobe person.
It's the Matt off the mic.
It's the Matt off the mic.
Yeah.
That you're going, okay, what happens to all those jobs? And, what is the future there? But I would bet that the only demographic that watch them live on television
is Donald Trump.
Is people in there north of 60 years old.
Yeah, they say he does not sleep. And he's just up, and it rattles his cage.
It's a bad sign.
Same as Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live really
I watch it all on YouTube.
Really rattles his cage.
It's a bad precedent, I think, to silence comedians. Even when, like, I remember when Sam Kinison was around, and his brand of comedy was not for me.
Yeah,
but I'm glad it existed. Like, I didn't want to say you are not allowed to have your sense of humor. And the Andrew Dice Clay, same thing. It's not for me, but it was for some people.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't think that we should police comedy.
And the interesting thing
because the market decides.
Because people
you're either funny or you're not funny.
Yeah. People say, well, what about the First Amendment, Jimmy Kimmel? First Amendment doesn't always cover you when you've been hired by a private company. And that private company said, we want you to entertain people. We don't like the way you're entertaining people, so here's your money, go away. I don't think his show's ever coming back. More in a minute.
Just to be clear, am I going to get fired?
Hey, you guys, Ron and Don here for Les Schwab, where I have great news. Guess what? It's the fall, which means the winter's coming, which means summer's going away, rain is coming, snow is coming, ice is coming, and what's the most important thing if you're like me? You want traction. Yeah, whether it's summer, fall, winter, you want traction. And right now at Les Schwab, you can save $120, boom, instantly, on select sets of all-terrain tires. These are the exact same tires that I have on both of my rigs, and they offer the all-weather traction every single day, whether it's your commute or you're heading up to Snoqualmie Pass to do some skiing or some snowboarding. And don't forget, as the weather changes around here, you need traction in all terrains, and these tires are dependable, they're all seasoned, and they're designed, like I said, for local commutes or an off-road adventure sometime this fall, Ron.
Yeah, and as always, every tire comes with America's best tire warranty, including 60-day satisfaction guarantee and free road hazard protection. That is incredible. Just another way you get more from less. Stop by your neighborhood Les Schwab or learn more at leschwab.com. That's leschwab.com. Limited time offer while supplies last. See leschwab.com/sale for details.
If you have a friend that is ready to start their real estate journey, send them to ronandonsitdown.com.
All right, you guys, welcome back to the Ron and Don Show. First, Paul Newman, and now Robert Redford has left the building. Paul left us some great salad dressing. What did Robert Redford leave us, do you think? And a lot of it has to do with Sundance and where he passed away, the Sundance Film Festival, right?
Well, I think Robert Redford was a giant in the world of cinema. If you like movies, you like cinema, like there's no other word than iconic or legend of the craft. It was interesting because, like, I'm going to go, and we had talked about in our show notes of like, hey, what's something you're watching, learning, or listening to? I want to go back and watch All the President's Men. That was the movie, of course, where he plays Bob Woodward. I recently learned that because of that movie, him and Bob Woodward became friends of 50 years. Like, they would call each other regularly. They were very fond of each other. And there were some stories I heard from the Washington Post newsroom where, when they were getting, researching for that movie, that Bob Woodward would bring Robert Redford to the newsroom because Redford wanted to see what it was like.
It's because Watergate was still going on.
Right.
When Robert Redford, when he bought the rights to Watergate was not over. They were in the middle of it, and so he got to really have a front row seat to all of it. And when you go back and when he passed, I went back and I watched it. It really stands up. It is a great movie.
Men. And I think it's more poignant now.
Those two reporters are still around.
Yeah.
They're still around.
Bernstein doesn't work for the Washington Post anymore, but Bob Woodward does, and he's written books. He has some of the most definitive works on President Trump. He would call President Trump late at night, and there's a whole series of things that he wrote that are absolutely phenomenal. So I think
were you with me when we interviewed Bob Woodward one time?
No,
was that just me?
I was out of town. You did it solo. I think it was on one of his Trump books, wasn't it?
Yeah, he had a new Trump book.
And so, like, that was incredible. So I think All the President's Men is great. The thing that I like about Redford is it would have been super easy for him to be the stereotypical attractive male lead and just milk that forever. And he chose actually like, hey, I want to do more than that. And so part of it was his environmental activism. Part of it was the Sundance. And we wouldn't have, I was watching Inglourious Bastards the other day.
Great movie.
Especially the Christoph Waltz character at the beginning. Phenomenal.
Incredible.
You don't have a Quentin Tarantino or Robert Rodriguez or even like probably a Sofia Coppola if you don't have Robert Redford saying, I'm going to go to Utah. Think about this premise when he started. Now we all think about it like it's common. But to go, I'm going to go to the middle of Utah in the wintertime, do a film festival that embraces independent cinema, LGBTQ plus cinema, female directors from around the world, movies from the Middle East or in different languages. I'm going to put that into a town in Utah.
And he didn't have the power of the internet yet.
No power of the internet.
Yeah.
And simply for the sake of like celebrating interesting ideas. That's pretty radical. And we see the fruit of that all the time. If you like edgy films or like that would probably not be a Sopranos or a Breaking Bad or all of these anti-hero movies come out of the lineage of independent film. Then even you look at Scorsese and all the stuff, you know, I did a deep dive on Daniel Day-Lewis the other day. If it wasn't for guys like Redford, you don't have that type of content. Like it was all this studio driven schmaltz in a lot of ways, the chitty chitty bang bangs of the world where like you just let's put this star together, we'll have this script and like go and just make the movie. And so to get sort of these, if you ever had a cinema experience where it really touched you and you really saw something through a different light or you really identified with a character where it's like, oh, I never thought about what it would be like to be, a woman in the, in England in the 1600s or whatever. And like you have your perspective changed because of a great director. Like those sort of movies were not being made.
And what's really interesting, when you look at Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and you go back and look at that performance with Paul Newman, I was joking earlier, I went back and watched that too. Those two together on a screen, I don't know who's more stunning. I don't know who's better looking. Also, I don't know who the better actor is, because not only are they so handsome, but they're great actors, and they both give each other room in that movie to be a star. And a lot of times we saw, whenever you would take someone and put them in a movie with Elvis, who was always named Mike, Elvis didn't necessarily want to share the screen with another co-star that was as handsome as he was.
As good of an actor as either of those two.
I don't
obviously.
know. I love the Elvis story because at some point he had agreed through the Colonel to do so many movies, and after a while he would forget, because he at times would be filming 2 movies at once, and I asked my sisters, because they loved Elvis. I said, why is his name Mike in every movie? And they didn't know. And then not too long ago, I went and I searched and I looked and I went down a rabbit hole, and it's because he was in all these different movies, filming them at the same time, and they were just cranking them out. And they're like, "Hey, you're just gonna be Mike. That way, you won't forget who you are and which movie." So in his later movies, he was always Mike.
I think Redford, if you pick. He won an Oscar for Ordinary People, which is a very sad movie as a director. He was not even nominated as an actor, which is wild. But there's 15 or 20 movies you could choose from and not have a disappointing night watching, if you're queuing up a movie. But All the President's Men, for me, is the one I'm going to rewatch.
And even as he aged, he was very handsome. I think 89 is a good time to check out.
There's a movie, I think it's called All Is Lost, if you've never seen it. Have you ever seen that one?
Mm-mm.
He's on a boat. The boat goes sideways. I won't give it away, but the movie's called All Is Lost.
Does he end up on a beach with a volleyball? Because I think
Yes.
I've seen this before.
Yes.
Okay.
Named Rawlings.
Yes. Yeah. More on the other side.
Thanks for being a part of the Ron and Don Nation. Subscribe to the Nation News at ronanddonsitdown.com. A behind-the-scenes look at everything Ron and Don.
All right, you guys, welcome back to the Ron and Don Show. It's interesting to turn on your television set and see Tom Brady. I still like Greg Olson better.
I do too.
Yeah.
Brady's grown on me a little bit.
Is he?
Yeah, maybe it's just familiarity. You like what you like.
He doesn't say anything. He doesn't say anything.
That's the job.
Is it?
I don't know. Maybe it's because of this story that we're about to say.
He leans on a lot, when I was throwing the ball to Gronk, or, when I was throwing the ball to Edelman, or, when I was winning my 19th Super Bowl. He does that a lot. He does that a lot on podcasts, anytime he's being interviewed. And he does that in the booth, and I don't enjoy that. I don't enjoy him. You know who I miss in the booth probably the most is John Gruden. I love John Gruden in the booth. I always felt like I was learning something about football. You've seen him carry that on now that he's working with Barstool. It looks like he's going to have an opportunity to go back and coach in college sports, so I think that's where he'll spring up again. John Madden was really good at that. John Madden was really good because we know his background was a high school teacher as well as a Raider coach, but he retired when he was very young, and he ended up in the booth with Pat Summerall. And as soon as he started doing his everything from the boom to the telestrator, and every once in a while he would color in a story, but you think about how colorful the Raiders were when he was taking them to a Super Bowl. He would have a lot to say about that, and normally he wouldn't do that because he knew there were a lot of fans out there that probably weren't Raider fans or probably didn't want to hear those old stories. So Brady tells me those stories ad nauseum. Greg Olson doesn't. Greg Olson is very good at giving you bite-sized pieces of what's going on in the game, and you could see he's a great player at Carolina. He played a couple of years here finishing out his career with the Seattle Seahawks.
Okay, let me give you this.
But the reason I bring it up.
Hold on, real quick. Will you take Tom Brady or Kenny Albert? If I had to give you Kenny Albert all day calling the Seahawks game or Tom Brady, you have to choose one.
Well, they don't call it. One calls the game and the other gets color commentary.
You had to listen to one of those guys for a whole football game.
Just put them in the same box together.
Kenny Albert or Tom Brady?
Yeah, that's right.
I'll take Tom Brady all day long over Kenny Albert.
Anyway, my understanding is the Raider game was going on.
And he's a minority owner of the Raiders.
And
he has 10% stake.
And he's up, I guess, in the coach's box. So not in the owner's box. He's up in the coach's box
with a headset.
With a headset on during, I think they played Thursday night football. It didn't help because the Raiders still got trounced.
So people are up in arms over this. So let's think about this for a minute. He's a 10% ownership stake of the Raiders. And as a sidebar, I gained a lot of respect for Mark Davis in this, because when Al Davis died and the team went to his son Mark, I thought, this guy's a clown show. He doesn't know anything. So in this story, he said, listen, I don't know football as well as my dad. I don't know how to evaluate football players as well as my dad. And that's why I wanted Tom Brady to be a part of this ownership team. I need people around me that know football better than me. I was like, wow, that's a really self-aware, insightful comment. And it was Brady that came in. He got a discount on his 10% share. The rest of the owners approved it. So the rest of the owners said, yes, we want Tom Brady as an owner in the NFL, and he's going to get 10%. We understand there's a discount because he's bringing value in other ways. Brady was one that signed off on Pete Carroll. Brady was the one that signed off on Geno coming in there. Brady calls and talks to their offensive coordinator, Chip Kelly, 2 or 3 times a week to go over different schemes. The rub is, in Brady's duties as a play-by-play guy, normally that person goes in person and they have access to practice and game film and coaches and players of the game they're going to call. And so, for instance, the Commanders. The Raiders are playing the Commanders coming up, maybe even the week that this show's going on. And so 2 games before, Brady called the Commanders game against a different team. So the worry is, let's say that Brady goes to his show meetings and he gets some information about an injury, about a play package, about a certain thing that a quarterback is working on or that a defensive player is struggling with. And he's like, oh, I can exploit that with Chip Kelly on the Raiders. This defensive back doesn't like it when this pattern is
Yeah,
run.
I think that's all bullshit. I know when I did pregame and postgame for the Dallas Cowboys and halftime.
How about them Cowboys?
With Drew Pearson and Charlie Waters. What happens on Friday is you get this huge packet of information on both teams. And then on Saturday, and we did all the radio calls, on Saturday you would go and you would meet with some of the players and you'd go over that information. And then sometimes you would see the national broadcast guys that would do that. So someone like a Tom Brady. All the information and all the film is out there for everyone. Like
Understood.
every single game you see is on TV.
But not all the practice
and then there's
footage.
also a lot of the coaches, a lot of the cuts of the coaches. I think when you're sitting down and you're going over some things that you might do in this game with the Commanders compared to what you did in the last game, most of those practices are closed anyway. I don't know that you're letting the TV guys or even the radio guys know what you're up to, and all that information is out there, and it's a free.
I don't think it's
so.
a big deal.
Before the internet age, I would agree with you that maybe he would have an opportunity that someone else would not have. But I think because all the information, all the tape, all the coaches' tapes, everything is out there, and you can find it at all that information ad nauseum. I don't see him getting information in one of those meetings that's going to help the Raiders. And if it did, then they wouldn't have got trounced last week.
And if the NFL had their chance to make special rules for him when they approved him to buy it.
Why are you rooting for Geno Smith? You're the only person in Seattle that's rooting for him. Everybody else hates him. Why do they hate him, and why do you love him, and why are you rooting for him?
I kind of, for whatever reason, just want to see him and Pete do well. I like it when the Raiders are good. I think it makes the NFL more interesting. I kind of think that the fact that they got the band back together in Las Vegas is an interesting storyline. I like this Genty kid from Boise State that they have at running back. I know you think he's small and is getting his is
They don't have a good offensive line.
they don't have a good offensive line. I don't know. I think it's an interesting storyline.
And you're rooting for Pete Carroll.
I'm rooting for
You
Pete Carroll.
hated Pete Carroll when
I
he came
did.
here. You hated him.
I did
And
because of the way he handled the Reggie
and
Bush
it
thing
seems
at
like
USC.
with USC.
You know, Don, I'm just. You know that I like to always compete.
Yeah.
That's my motto.
Pete wrote you and you didn't write back.
I did enjoy seeing Russell Wilson have a phenomenal game and still lose with a 64
500 yards.
That made me happy. He lost and Aaron Rodgers lost in the same weekend.
You like that?
I love that.
How long,
I root against those guys.
How long could Aaron Rodgers? We were getting all these sacks. They weren't real sacks. It's because Aaron Rodgers was standing back there for like 19 minutes, not throwing the football.
If those guys lose every game this year, I will be happy.
Oh, really?
I do not like Aaron Rodgers.
Why not? He's an enigma.
Why not?
He's an enigma.
Oh my gosh! Just wrap the show up, please.
You haven't seen it? Have you seen it?
No, I purposely will not watch it.
Gunnar and I started watching it.
It's
like
gonna be
halfway through. He's like, "Dad,
It's
I'm going
cringy.
upstairs to play my guitar." Are we done?
Yes.
Hey, you guys, thanks for listening to this episode of the Ron and Don Show. We do appreciate it. And if you need us for real estate purposes, just reach out.
Yeah, ronadonsitdown.com. We can send you a buyer's playbook, a seller's playbook. We can do a Zoom meeting where we discuss your real estate goals. It's been exciting to see quite a few Ron and Don Nation members buy a house right now. And I always love representing a buyer. And then if you are selling, let's do a sit down so that we can get a game plan together for how and when to sell.
Yeah. All right, so head up, shoulders back. Our thanks to Matt and Grace and my son Gunners, our station voice, our good friend Charlie the dog. He's Ron and I'm Don. Until next time, keep your head up and your shoulders back. You! Been listening to the Ron and Don Show all right on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
Thanks for listening to the Ron and Don Show. Please hit subscribe.